Shalom, brothers and sisters. Now, this story I really wanted to do because I live in Africa. I live right next to the Kruger National Park, and I can regularly go in for free, which is a blessing, and go and spend time in nature with these amazing animals that God made and just appreciate them for what they are. So living here and having grown up here, I can give you some perspective on this article specifically because it's caused a bit of an uprising and an uproar about the whole idea even. Namibia plans to kill more than 700 animals, including elephants and hippos, for those struggling with food insecurity. So this is their worst drought in more than 100 years. Now we know the whole world is rushing into a period of famine, a 7-year period of famine. And we're seeing it everywhere. Food insecurity growing like crazy. The animals set to be culled include 83 elephants, 30 hippos, 60 buffalo, 50 impala, 100 blue wildebeest, 300 zebras. The country's Ministry of Environment, Forestry and Tourism made the announcement on Monday. They will come from the national parks and communal areas with sustainable game numbers and will be killed by professional hunters, the ministry said in their release. Namibia declared a state of emergency in May this year as the impacts of the drought worsened. An estimated 1.4 million people, which is around half their population, are expected to face high levels of acute food insecurity. The culling program will take pressure off water resources by reducing wildlife in areas where their number exceed available grazing and water, said the ministry. So the first reaction here is, oh no, they can't do that. Elephants, you can't kill elephants, that's terrible. And hippos, buffaloes, impalas. All right, so I live next to the Kruger National Park. Way back in the day, many years ago, not now, unfortunately, they had a sustainable program in place. As in, the environmentalists went in, the game rangers went in, they studied the layout of the land and exactly how everything worked, that there was enough resources for the animals that were living in that protected park area. Elephants are massive. They eat and drink a lot. If their numbers became too large, then they would go in, they would pick off the old and certain ones of that herd and they would cull them. That culled elephant, the meat would be used, it would be given through to the people, the tusks would be kept in vaults, everything was sorted out and the land could continue to sustain the amount of animals that were living in that designated area. The minute they stop doing that, the elephants start breeding out of hand. To give you an idea, I drove with a friend through half of the Kruger Park just last week, and just in that one drive, which was from the morning 6 o'clock till about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, driving through this entire section, I stopped counting at about 250 elephants. They were everywhere, just elephants everywhere, more than there should be in the area that we were covering. And there were more that I wasn't even seeing because they're not culling them anymore because people don't like to do that. But now the problem is that has a knock-on effect for the environment. If you cull them sustainably and properly and you pick the ones that you were culling and then you reuse that meat, you could immediately address other problems too immediately, which is what Namibia is planning to do. They are only doing the animals that they can bring the numbers down to sustain the land and the water resources. Now you might say, how big a difference does that really make? Huge. Elephants consume about 20 gallons of water daily to survive. So that's their minimal intake. They need more than that. And that's just for drinking. Then they need water to bathe in and splash around in to moisturize their skin and keep them going. They are massive animals in the African heat. So it's all of that. So large amounts of water just by that one elephant. And we're talking massive herds. Elephants eat between 149 and 169 kgs of vegetation daily. So for you guys in America and other places, 330 to 375 pounds minimum, just daily, one elephant. 16 to 18 hours, or 80% of an elephant's day, is spent feeding. They consume grass, small plants, bushes, fruit, twigs, tree bark, and roots. Now the problem with this is they'll just, if they find a tree that's got some leaves right on the top that are still green and the rest aren't great, they'll push that whole tree down and destroy it to get to those few leaves and then amble off. That tree's had it. It's finished. The end. How long do you wait for another tree to grow up? And that immediately affects all sorts of things. There's no more tree there. There's no roots holding the ground together. If there's heavy rain and a flash flood, do you see the knock-on effects here? And I'm almost sounding like a climate alarmist or whatever. But what I'm saying is it needs to be sustainable. There needs to be the right amount of animals in the area allocated to them. And when it becomes too much and you're not controlling that, it is a problem. So I personally think this is a good move on Namibia's side. There are other African countries too that have given like pushback to European countries. I know France was saying to, I can't remember which country it was, but they were saying, how dare you even talk about killing elephants or anything like this? And they said, we've got so many, we can't keep up with them and the land can't. So we gifting you 500 elephants, take them to France. France obviously still hasn't taken them, because how do you even move 500 elephants? They're elephants. It's huge. How do you and you can't dart him, put him on his side and let him sleep. His own body weight will crush his lungs. There's so many things that make it difficult to just ship an elephant from one place to the next. It's not a cartoon movie. This is real life. So yeah, I think this is good for Namibia. I think it's good for the people that there's going to be some source of food coming in, and at the same time that they're sustainably looking after their wildlife and the land and the water resources in the midst of a huge crisis. So that's the relevant information around this kind of story that causes a flash reaction in the world, especially in areas where they don't know all of these other factors that need to be taken into account. So I hope that helps. I love elephants. I think they're amazing. They're incredibly intelligent. I can tell you stories from when I lived in the Kruger Park and the times that I've had with elephants. They're amazing, beautiful creatures. I think I've posted videos and pictures once or twice, and I will again. So incredible creatures, but too many in a small area, not a good thing. God bless. Keep looking up. Shalom.